Well, hi, I'm Simon, and I'm going to be talking about avatars.
Who are you? Who are you? Who are you? I'm an avatar. I'm an avatar. I'm an avatar. I'm an avatar.
So, can an avatar build an effective relationship in the digital world? Or who are you? Who are you? Who are you? Perhaps a chant we've heard at a football game. Or perhaps if you're old enough to remember the Who sing this song in 1978. It's a good question. Who are you? What does it mean to be human? It's a question that philosophers have asked over the centuries. And yet we think about the term persona. It means literally a mask, such as that worn by an actor in a Roman drama. At that time, actors wore masks to allow the audience to understand which of the different characters in the drama they were playing. And Carl Jung, when he talks about this persona, it's a mask that mediates between the psyche and the outside world, a compromise between individual and society as to what a person should appear to be. In 1926, Robert Parks wrote a paper saying that this mask is the role we strive to live up to. This mask is our true self, the self we would like to be. And yet, nearly a century later, masks perhaps have taken off a different context. Perhaps if you think of digital identity, it's the hyper-personal self, where the internet permits the person to create their online personality in a different context to their real identity. Sherry Turkle speaks about this login self. Do we change when we log in onto the internet, or actually these days when we log in on our phones or other devices? But then I would suggest there is a more modern term to cover this, to describe who we are. We are all avatars. We just put on our avatar outfit for our given situation, whether that be as a student, a professor, a professional, a home life, or just going down the pub. I mean, we use the phrase, don't we, in real life or to meet in person, as if when we're online, we're not real or there personally, just represented by our avatar or our computer screen. And yet the same person is there, whether online or on site. And when I was in policing, I was a detective chief inspector and I had special powers. Do you know, I could detain people with reasonable grounds. I could use reasonable force. Like Superman, I could put my hand up and normally traffic stopped. A couple of times there was a glitch in the software. Yet when in my last role, I walked across the threshold into Brentwood Police Station, where I worked. I was the detective chief inspector on major crime, the senior investigating officer. But when I walked in there and crossed that threshold, I was no longer Simon, but boss, governor, sir, or DCI. I was wearing my detective's avatar. And suddenly, when I retired, my superpowers went. I was no longer Nietzsche's Übermensch, no longer boss, governor, or sir, but just Simon. A new avatar? Or perhaps just the one I left at the door when I walked in. Similarly, when I go, and we saw it in the clip, into the metaverse to church, then I am replicated by an avatar. My avatar represents me. And yet, an avatar is originally a manifestation of the divine in human form, seen predominantly in Hinduism, the descent from heaven to earth. Yet, with the advent of the metaverse, the avatar has taken on a different context. It is the representation of the real person who's controlling the avatar. The avatar cannot exist without the real person. If the avatar speaks, it is the actual human being speaking. When the real person stops the app or the game, the avatar in that form ceases to exist. It can be seen as a digital representation, a digital self-representation of participants in the virtual world or metaverse. Of course, the metaverse can be interpreted in different ways. It first appeared in Neil Stephenson's 1992 science fiction novel, Snow Crash, describing a virtual environment where lifelike avatars engage with each other. 30 odd years on, it is a vision Silicon Valley are heavily investing in. In August 21, Facebook changed name to Meta to focus on the virtual world. Access is gained through VR headsets or a computer. It can be accessed both ways, depending on the platform you want to use. The avatar is designed by the operator, and the images can be changed for different programs or games or platforms. I can design the avatar, including sex, ethnicity, features, clothing. Really, the only part that remains true is the voice. And yet, Zuckerberg said the defining quality of the metaverse will be the feeling of presence, like you're right there, with another person or in another place. Feeling truly present with another person is the ultimate dream of social technology. That's why he says we're focused on building this. And yet, really, an avatar in its basic form is a visible representation of the invisible. It's just a body that we use to engage in an environment. Perhaps no different from the body we inhabit to engage with our work, relationships, religious activities. We use different avatars in those instances and in the metaverse. But then if we're all just avatars, how do we build relationship? And that's really my research is focused on how we can do discipleship in the Christian sense, but how do we build a relationship with all but an avatar? And I'll be looking at this through the lens of Karl Barth, the Swiss Reformed theologian from the 20th century. And in Church Dogmatics, he offers 4 criteria for an authentic relationship, namely visibility. How do we look each other in the eye? Communication, speak and hear to one another. Activity, rendering mutual assistance. And finally, emotions, doing it gladly. And it can be argued that's where AI falls down. Hertzfeld in her book speaks about that, how AI can't do anything gladly. It just responds to a set of commands. If I want Alexa to play the radio station, then I just say, Alexa, play Radio Essex. And it happens. She doesn't have a choice. She can't say, well, no, I think you should listen to Radio Essex and not BBC Essex. She responds. She doesn't do it gladly. And of course, the difficulty is perhaps around visibility, looking the other person in the eye. And whilst my avatar can look the other avatar in the eye, I cannot look to the person I'm speaking to in the eye. But Bart here isn't just speaking about how we see with our eyes. He's talking about the inward person, how we communicate, how we see people inwardly. But then who are we building the relationship with? But then is that any different from the relationships we build in the gym or at work or in church? Who am I when I'm out running, when I'm at work, preaching or walking the dogs? Am I me, but just putting on an avatar to fulfill the role expected? Gergen speaks about the ersatz being. And of course, for those who know the history, ersatz was a substitute or replacement during the Second World War. Coffee. You had ersatz coffee rather than proper coffee, as I would describe it. But it was a substitute, I think, made from acorns, not coffee beans. So is the avatar I wear a substitute or an image I want to create for who I really am? Yi and others, they've done some work on the protest effect with individual avatars, identify they conform to the behavior they believe others would expect them to have. In their experience, they found that the more attractive avatars exhibited increased self-disclosure. And the taller the avatar, the more confident and aggressive they were. Which actually they continued once they'd left their online activities. It was reflected in their on-site activities. And Gergen defines ersatz being as that which the capacity for entering immediately into identities or relationships of wildly varying form. And that's what an avatar does, isn't it? We enter into a relationship of differing forms depending on the role we're called to play. And he goes on to say, well, because of social saturation and self-population, tradition has gone out the window. The committed forms of relationship have become antiquated and a multiplicity of partial relationships is favoured. And even the concept of a career is diminished. We become actors on a stage, which change periodically, unlike the boomers or Gen X, who traditionally stayed in the same career for life. Gergen says if identities are essentially forms of social construction, then one can be anything at any time, as long as the roles, costumes, and settings have been arranged. Or in modern terms, one just changes their avatar. Irving Goffman speaks of the moral career, where, as he saw it, people are expected to pursue not only a professional career, but a social one as well. They must appear to possess good character. However, with the concept of avatar or even mask, perhaps we have different ones for different situations. And the concept as a good character, as a mark of identity, has been changed, and his identity is an endangered species. So really the question comes back to who am I? And different theologians use different words to describe. Paul Goodyear uses the word meanness to describe this real essence of a person. The meanness is what is inside. This is what I'm engaging with. Heidegger uses thatness, what is I myself is, and really focuses around Dasein, the being there. What does it mean to be there? What does it mean for us to engage? And Karl Barth is the visible body is a vehicle for the invisible soul. So in one sense, we are all avatars, putting on a different outfit depending on the role that we need to fulfill. But it's the meanness or the thatness, whatness, I myselfness that builds a relationship, not the persona portrayed. We can develop relationships in the metaverse, perhaps different from those we experience on site. But the relationships are worth developing. It's the inner me that builds the relationship, not the outside avatar.
Who are you? Who are you? Who are you? I'm an avatar. I'm an avatar. I'm an avatar. Who are you? Who are you?
We are all just avatars. Thank you for listening and your attention.